The sun hadn't yet risen when Joana heard the sound of hooves on the dirt road. It was always at the same hour, just before 6, when the chill of dawn still fought against the heat of the backlands. The sound came slow, rhythmic, almost respectful. Then came 2 knocks on the wooden gate and silence. When she opened the door, she always found the same offering: a jar of honey wrapped in a clean cloth and a bottle of freshly brewed coffee, still warm. There was never a note, never a word, only that sweet smell, mixed with the bitterness of memory. For months, no one knew who left those gifts. The village of Pedra Branca was too small to keep secrets, but just big enough to pretend it didn't see. Joana had lived alone since the night her husband, Antonio, was shot in the chest. They said it was a bar fight, a drunk brawl between cowhands, the kind of thing men did when they drank more than they could carry. But she knew. Everyone knew. It had been Raul, the same man who now rode down that road every morning, leaving honey and coffee at the doorstep of the widow, who never looked him in the eye. Raul was a name that still made the wind stop. A former cowboy, born of no one, raised in dust and solitude, known for being fearless and rough, the kind of man who spoke little but whose eyes settled every argument. They said he feared no man, but he never forgave himself for anything. That night, he and Antonio drank together. They argued about land, about cattle, and about something neither ever said out loud: Joana, a gunshot, a body, and a silence so deep the whole backland swallowed it. After that night, Raul disappeared. For months, no one saw him. Then, one morning, the sound of hooves returned. No one ever caught him leaving the jars, but everyone knew it was him. The smell of the coffee gave him away, strong and bitter, just like the man himself. The honey was his apology, sweet and clean, the one he never had the courage to speak aloud. At first, Joana left the gifts outside, untouched. After a while, she began bringing the coffee inside. She told herself it was pity. You don't waste honey, or God will punish you. But deep down, something in that gesture hurt and soothed her at the same time. Each sip reminded her of what she'd lost, and what she still had left. Time. The gossip spread like wildfire. He's trying to make peace, some said. He's trying to torment her, said others. But Joana never answered anyone. She kept her head down, tended to her chickens, swept her yard, and every single morning, without fail, there it was again, honey and coffee. Father Bento, a man of faith and suspicion, was the first to say out loud what everyone else only whispered: a man who kills with his hands tries to pray with his gestures. But hell doesn't accept gifts. One day, a traveler stopped by Z. Pequeno's store and told a story that made the whole town fall silent. He said Raul had been seen far to the north, working someone else's land, sleeping under the open sky, never resting. That he carried in his pocket a small blue ribbon, old and faded. It belonged to her, said the traveler, to the woman he killed without killing. That week, Joana's nights changed. She began dreaming of footsteps in the hallway, of voices whispering her name. Sometimes she woke up sweating, smelling smoke, like the night everything ended. In the cracked mirror, she swore she saw the shadow of a man in a hat standing behind her, watching. The fear was the same as before, but now there was something else. Curiosity. Why does he keep doing this? She wondered. Why every day? But her heart, hardened by grief, refused to forgive. On Sunday morning, the priest came knocking. Joana, my daughter, he said. That man still haunts your path. This must end. I never called him Father, but he calls you. She lowered her eyes. I only hear the sound of the wind. That conversation hung heavy in the air. That night, Joana lit her oil lamp again, not to wait, but to challenge. She removed her headscarf, let her hair fall, and stood on the porch facing the wind. She wanted to see if he would dare to come. She wanted to look into the eyes of the man who killed her fate, but Rawl didn't come that night. Nor the next, nor the one after that. The honey and coffee stopped coming. The silence returned, heavier than before. The people started talking even more. They said Rawl was sick, that he'd been seen wandering the fields, burned by the sun. Some swore they'd seen him kneeling by the river, crying, talking to himself. He's paying, they said, but hell is long. 3 weeks later, Joana heard something different, the weary neigh of a horse. She ran to the fence and saw him there, exhausted, covered in dust, face heavy with remorse. Rawl dismounted slowly. "I didn't come to ask forgiveness," he said, not raising his eyes. "I came to return what's yours." Her heart froze. What could possibly be mine now? Rawl pulled a small wooden box from his saddlebag. It was dark, tied with cord. He placed it in her hands. "Open it when the sun rises." Then he turned away. Joana wanted to shout, but her voice died in her throat. He climbed back on his horse and rode off, disappearing into the dust, like a ghost obeying time. That night dragged on forever. She didn't sleep. The rooster crowed 3 times before she dared open the box. Inside lay a silver crucifix, the one Antonio had worn the day he died, and a lock of hair wrapped in cloth. Beside it, a note. "He didn't die by chance. I found out too late. Forgive me." Her knees gave way. "My God, what is this?" she whispered, but God didn't answer. The next morning, she went to Z. Pequeno's store. "Have you seen Rawl?" "No, ma'am. They say he's up by the Cayuero Hill." "Alone?" "Since always." She bought kerosene, bread, and salt, and left without saying where she was going. When the priest heard, he tried to stop her. "You're going after him, Joana?" "No, Father," she said. "I'm going after the truth." The road to the hill was long and dry. The sun punished her face, and the cracked earth seemed to whisper the names of those who never returned. But she kept walking. Each step was a memory, each stone a word left unsaid. At the top, the wind blew strong. Rawl was sitting beside the remains of a dead fire. He looked smaller now, beard overgrown, eyes hollow, body frail. "I knew you'd come," he said without moving. "Then speak. What's this I read?" Rawl looked toward the horizon, where the sun was slowly rising. "Antonio didn't die the way they say." "What do you mean?" "The bullet wasn't meant for him." "It was meant for me." Joana frowned. "Explain." "Colonel Duarte sent someone to kill one of us. We worked the same ranch. Someone said one of us was stealing cattle. They gave the order to shoot the man in the black hat." She froze. Antonio had been wearing Rawl's hat that day. The silence that followed was cruel. Even the wind seemed to mock them. "I tried to tell the truth," Rawl said, "but no one would listen. By the time I realized, it was already too late. And why let everyone believe it was you?" Rawl lowered his head. "Because it was. I was the one who gave him the hat. I was the one who put him in the bullet's path." Tears came without warning. Joana looked at him, broken, shattered. "And the honey? The coffee?" "To remind myself that, even covered in guilt, I was still human. You killed the man I loved. I loved him too. Like a brother. And you." The words died in his mouth. The fire flickered again, as if the backlands itself wanted to hear the rest. Joana took a breath. "So that's it. You killed 2 men, him and yourself." Rawl nodded. "All that's left is what the wind hasn't carried away." She turned and began walking down the hill. Behind her, his voice rose one last time. "Tomorrow morning, The honey and coffee will be at your door. For the last time. Joana didn't look back. The next morning, just as he'd said, the jar of honey was there. But the coffee was cold. And for the first time, there was something new. A small wooden cross, hand-carved, with the name Raoul etched quickly across it. They found his body 2 days later by the riverbank. His black hat beside him. Father Bento said it was punishment, but Joana knew it was freedom. After Raoul's death, Pedra Branca was never the same again. The wind, once heavy and hot, now blew softer, as if the backlands had finally exhaled after holding its breath for years. No one spoke his name out loud. It became a whisper mixed with the crackle of firewood and the hum of cicadas at night. But everyone knew something had changed. The man who had killed and paid with his own soul had left behind a trail, not of sin, but of humanity. Joana stayed inside for days. The cross with his name sat on her table, beside the last jar of honey and the cold bottle of coffee. The scent still lingered, sweet, bitter, alive. Sometimes she caught herself watching the horizon, waiting to hear the sound of hooves that would never come again. Other nights, she dreamed of Raoul's face, not as a murderer, but as someone carrying the same burden she did. The curse of surviving. In the backlands, surviving is its own punishment. One morning, Father Bento came again. I brought the record, he said, showing her a faded paper. Raoul asked that it be given to you. If he didn't make it. Joana opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, the handwriting firm yet broken. Joana, I don't know if heaven will take me, but if it does, I'll ask God to let the wind take care of you. I did what I did not knowing what I was doing. I ran from myself. But the backlands always found me. The honey was what was left of my soul. The coffee, what was left of my courage. I can't give you back the time, but know this, it was never mine. It was ours. Raw. Tears blurred the words. Joana folded the letter and placed it in a small chest beside Antonio's crucifix. Now both of you are at peace, she whispered. In the days that followed, she began going out again, to the market, to trade eggs, to walk under the sun. Life slowly returned, but something inside her had shifted. She walked slower, saw the world with less anger. One afternoon, she saw children playing with wooden horses in the square. One little boy wore a black hat, too big for his head. Joana stopped. The boy smiled. Want to play, ma'am? She smiled back. I've played enough with fate. Child. People began visiting her house for advice. They said Joana understood silence better than anyone. When she spoke, even the wind seemed to stop and listen. Once, a young widow came crying. He left me alone. Donna Joana. And Joana replied, no one's ever alone in the backlands. The wind always brings back what the heart still calls for. Time passed. Raoul's story became legend. Some said they saw him in dreams. Others swore his horse still roamed the dirt roads at night, leaving hoofprints in the sand, like a promise of forgiveness. Father Bento, now old, said during Mass, sometimes God sends angels that smell of dust and earth. And no one doubted it. Years later, on a night of soft rain, Joana woke to the sound of hooves once again. She rose slowly, her heart pounding, and opened the door. On the doorstep, a jar of honey, but this time, no coffee. Only the wind, blowing hard, moving the curtains as if someone had just left. She fell to her knees and cried, not from sadness, but from gratitude, because she finally understood. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's letting the wind carry away what the heart can no longer hold. The next morning, they found her house open, the lamp still burning. Joana was in her rocking chair, the black hat on her lap, a faint smile on her face. Father Bento held the vigil in silence. the same silence that had followed her all her life. They say that night the wind blew sweeter than ever, with the scent of fresh coffee and wild honey dot since then. In Pedra Branca, no one judges what they don't understand. The women who lose, the men who sin, the children who wander, all know that the backlands listen, and one day the wind will answer. And when the sun rises over those dry lands, you can still hear, far away, the echo of hooves on the dirt road and a woman's voice whispering softly, "Love may kill, but forgiveness brings life back."